Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to another lovely evening of Jaybird watching. We are here live with a couple of guests this evening that have a couple first times, long times, and then one that just seems like he's here every once a month, because we are the official podcast of jaysjournal.com, which is part of Fanside. So part of that affiliation, Chris Henderson. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm just peachy keen. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Come on, we're already. Last I saw, we were up by one already, and that just means things are good. And now it's three apparently. I look away for 2 seconds, and that's how things go.
Oh, wow.
All
Yeah, me too.
yeah,
That's good.
it's always good. Always good to be putting winning. Winning cures everything. Also with us this evening, we have Ian Hunter of many Blue Jays writing venues. Mostly it's the Daily Hive at these days, correct, Ian, or is it some other places?
Yeah. I used to bounce around a ton of places, but yeah, just Daily Hive these days.
There you go. So how have you been? Are you enjoying this little winning run we went on a little bit?
Yeah, it's I forgot how stressful September can be. It's not usually the romp like it was in 2015 where they just barreled down at the end. And so this is it's the highs and lows of September, but so far things are looking pretty good for this team right now.
Yeah, and as far as I want to talk the road trip, but I think we would be doing dismay right now to one of the hottest players in Major League Baseball if we didn't start this conversation this week with the reigning Player of the Week, Bo Bichette. Ian, Chris, everybody has been all over Bo Bichette to get his stuff together all season. I've been seeing a flying under the radar season for him for most of this season, and it's finally just come out in full force. Everything is right back together where you would expect it to be. He's running into the, main rankings in Major League Baseball, especially shortstop category. Ian, where do you think this has come from with Bo Bichette, or is this just all of a sudden just bang, this is real Bo Bichette?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like basically up until September, he's a league average hitter, right? And compared to last year, it was viewed as a bit of a disappointment because last year was a breakout season for him. He was an all-star, led the AL in hits, and this year, the power just didn't seem to be there, chasing quite a few pitches outside of the zone. But um, I don't know if it was just a change in his approach or if he got more aggressive. Like once the calendar turned to September, it's like he turned superhuman. And I just checked, this month he's hitting 482. He's already got 27 hits. Like this dude he's on fire, and he's, essentially carrying this team offensively right now. And last year his WAR was 5.1 and it's sitting at 4 now. It's going to be hard to replicate that, but
A little bit.
all of a sudden his season is taken it about face. So it's, defensively, I think he still is growing a little bit. On the base paths, he's kind of is who he is, but offensively, as John Schneider said, this is like the best that we've seen out of Bo Bichette. So I don't know if it's sustainable over the rest of the season, but it's certainly been a treat to watch.
Yeah, to the point of like craziness. Chris Henderson, weigh in. Where you think this is? Is this the real Bo Bichette that we saw break out last year, or is this just the run into the playoffs momentum kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget how long a baseball season is and how long a career is and all those sort of things. I mean, Bichette led the league in hits last year as a 23-year-old. And as we're seeing with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's having a solid season, but everyone views it as a disappointment because he's not reaching the standard that he had in 2021. So, I mean, for me, this is the first time that Bichette's really played with all of his confidence all year long. I've seen a guy, to me, as I've watched him, it seems like he's a guy has just been missing some confidence more than anything else. Swinging at bad pitches over the last couple of weeks here. The thing that's impressed me the most has been just his ability to lay off bad pitches. He's not swinging at those garbage breaking balls that are in the dirt that he's spent most of the year, hacking at. So part of it, I think he's getting more pitches to hit too, but that's because he's had a much better eye at the plate. And when he hits pitches that are strikes, I think he does a lot of damage.
Yeah, to that point of hitting balls really low, the one that he hits for what ends up being a game-winning home run against the Rays the other night, that ball was heading toward his shoe tops, and he's somehow managed to get just enough lift under that thing to go. That is the sneaky pop that is hiding in Bo Bichette's bat, or at least in the crazy amount of torque that he generates with that leg kick. I'll give you 50-50. So, but Ian, he has literally this last week, I think it was a 520 batting average or something like that over the last week. He literally eclipsed Mike Trout over the last week, who had 7 home runs in 7 games. This is just unprecedented. And I do think that, what to Chris's point a minute ago, that this is the best Bo Bichette that Blue Jays fans have gotten to see.
Yeah, it tells you how crazy of a week he had when he eclipsed someone who hit what that was, 7 homers, 7 consecutive home runs. Like, it was just insane. Like, it seemed every other night he's getting 2, 3, 4 hits. And the other thing I noticed too is he's been really central to a lot of big at bats, like go ahead runs. That other night in Baltimore where he had the 3 homer night. Also had a big series in Pittsburgh against the Pirates too. So, like, he's coming up clutch right now, which is huge, because you could say like Vladdy and George Springer, aside from tonight and last night, they've kind of underperformed as of late at the top of the order, but you've just got Bo Bichette right there coming in to pick them up. So it's I don't know. I think the real Bo Bichette is somewhere in the middle. But I think what he's doing now is he's just attacking pitches, right? Like, everyone knows he just hunts fastballs, and I think 6 of his homers this year have been on first pitches. So, why wait around and get fooled by a slider or a breaking ball and just go after a fastball right away? So I think maybe that's what he's doing, and it's working for him so far.
Chris, do you think that's a good chunk to the approach factor that what we've been seeing? I want to make another point here in a minute, but I do think that, to Ian's point, him being able to actually attack the ball has been obviously pushed to the front. This is you, go for it, do your game, and I think that's been showing lately.
Yeah, I mean, again, to me, I think it's about confidence for him. Like, I've seen a guy that's, I guess if you look at the numbers, he has been a little bit more aggressive lately, but he's been aggressive all year long. To me, it's just about swinging at the right pitches. I love that he's going in there and, like Ian said, being ready to swing at the first pitch, and I think that's an effective strategy for a guy like that. You go in looking for a fastball, and if you see a slider, regardless where it is, leave it alone. If you're Bichette. But to me, it comes down to confidence and just hitting better balls. Even, you're right. He did kind of pick that one off the dirt, but I've just seen him leave so many sliders on that outside corner, that old Joe Carter special, that he couldn't leave alone. And that's something Bichette just couldn't leave alone all year long. And finally he's starting to do that a lot more. And as a result, he's getting better pitches to hit.
Yeah. This next one, I'm going to let either one of you grab whoever wants to fight for this one next. The fact that John Schneider has been around the second half of this season. What Bo Bichette was dealing with to begin this season was completely different. This is literally, we're looking at the tale of 2 seasons between his first half and second half splits right now. How much do you think the Schneider effect is playing into the fact that he has been able to be more himself this second half?
I think there might be something there to that. I can't recall what the exact quote was from Bo, but I think the reporters kind of asked him what they thought about the managerial change, and he was like, "Yeah, it was about time," or it was like a very, it was kind of like a very,
off a little bit.
It was a subtle jab at Charlie. Take that for what you will, but maybe it is. They do kind of just say, "Hey, like, let it eat, man." Because think back to like when he was drafted. I think one of the reasons why he chose the Blue Jays, because they basically said they didn't want to tinker with his swing and change his hitting philosophy or anything, and that's one of the reasons why he ultimately signed with them. So
I think a big part of that was play shortstop too. They were going to let him keep doing that, where everybody else is saying he's not a career shortstop, which I don't know how many players actually get to stay a career shortstop, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. So I mean, like, we'll see what happens. Like, we'd have to ask the players inside the clubhouse, probably off the record, to get a true answer about whether things are looser with John Schneider. But I mean, take a look at his numbers first half and second half, and they're like night and day. And John Schneider's been around; he's been the manager second half. So put two and two together, I think there might be something there.
Yeah, it's been 257 for the first half, and so far this second half through 48 games, he's been 332, and he's already more than halfway to his RBI total for the first half.
Yep.
Chris,
Yeah.
you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I heard that subtle. I can't remember the exact quote either, and it was a subtle jab at Charlie, and but even if it's not so much like what was Charlie doing wrong, it might just be a familiarity thing with Schneider. He came up with them, throughout the minor league system. They've known each other for years. Sometimes it's just about a comfort level, and for a guy as talented as Bichette, it might just be, get back to doing what made you one of the top prospects in the game and one of the most exciting rookies that baseball's seen in years. And there again, comfort, confidence, all that kind of stuff. To me, it's been, as I've watched the guy all year long, he just hasn't looked until the second half here. Of course, he hasn't looked like the same confident player that I saw the first few years that he was in the league. So it's great to see him back with kind of, getting his groove back. Stella got her groove back.
Flows on.
Yeah. Bichette's got his groove back lately, and you can see it, and it's making a huge impact. He has the ability to be one of the best players in the American League when he's on.
Yeah. So this team, in the midst of Bo going off and going crazy here, has not over the last 10 games won seven of them. So that's been against some stiff competition, and to the point where we have to put up and shut up and win some of these ball games. They have been doing exactly that over the last 2 weeks. Schneider has been saying that even Vladdy is getting more bats that are more consistent and looking better. Tonight he has his 100th home run. So how crucial was this past few weeks, and having somebody like Bo Bichette all of a sudden come out of nowhere to help carry this team to this playoff post. Where I'm sitting, this push right now is looking a lot better from where we sat literally this same time last year, where we were I think this is about the time of year last year when we went through that little bump before we were like, oh, we better hurry up and turn it on. Chris, What do you think? Or Ian, if we want to go with it.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, the only thing I was going to say right away was that I think they've had to, keep up with this pace lately, because you look at what the Rays and the Mariners have been doing, and even the Orioles, they've kind of fallen off a bit lately. But this is, as much as they're in a more comfortable position, maybe with the bit of a lead that they've got in Baltimore, that could evaporate this week, obviously, as we know.
Very much so.
But they, I think if they hadn't gone on this run where Bichette's been carrying them in the last few games, they were 8-2 over 10 and stuff, and they'd be in a precarious spot because of the way that Tampa Bay and Seattle are playing.
Yeah, those two teams have been hot. Ian, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, that was like part of the schedule where the Blue Jays really needed to make ground, like those games against, the Cubs and the Pirates, and that crucial 4-gamer against the Orioles. And then, like, I just looked, the Rays, Jays, and Mariners have all been 13-7 in their last 20 games. So, like, Baltimore seems to be fading off a little bit, but like, the Mariners are not taking a game off. The Rays are not taking a game off. The Yankees have fallen down a little bit, but yeah, they need someone like Bo to just hit like his hair is on fire, because they really just kind of scraped by in that Pirates series, scoring, just barely enough runs. And then they come alive in Baltimore. But like, if Bo's not hitting the way he is, like, I don't know, there's probably like maybe 3 or 4 games they don't win, and they're further down the standing. Maybe they're not even in a playoff spot right now. So that just goes to show you how much one player can have a big difference at this time in the season.
Yeah, and to your point of having to beat up on everybody the last week, they did pretty much exactly that. Yeah, they dropped a couple of games here and there like they tend to do, but winning series, continuing to march forward, following the Cito principle that we've all loved for so many years. The fact is, obviously, the last couple of days we've been in a war of attrition with the Tampa Bay Rays, and watching exactly why those games were so crucial to run over the Pirates, run over the Rangers as much as we did, and then doing what we did against the Baltimore Orioles and taking that series as well. if they can continue to capitalize on this pitching, they're going to be a handful for everybody down the stretch. The biggest thing is keyword capitalizing. I think we watched the game last night and in the doubleheader that Bichette in the first doubleheader game there, the last at bat of the game, he was it 17 pitches that he ended up seeing. It felt Troy Tulowitzki 2015
Yeah,
to me.
yeah,
I was at that game
yeah.
too, so
Against
maybe that's
Andrew
why I run
Miller.
true.
Against
Yeah.
Andrew Miller, right? Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That might have been against Mariano Rivera.
I do
can't
remember it was the Yankees, but yeah, it was like it was a really long AB. I was getting kind of flashes of that one too. Yeah.
I was just waiting for something big to happen, especially with the way he's playing. But to that point, it didn't come along. But then they took care of business in game 2. But the fact that Bichette hits that game winner the night before against Tampa, I feel like the first 3 games of this series, obviously they're playing game 4 as we're recording right now, but they have taken it to the Rays. And I've been very impressed with the play over the last 2 days. Chris, what are you thinking?
Yeah, they're stepping up. I mean, it's funny because I more than anything, the pitching staff is stepping up.
You might have
Chet's
repeat that, buddy. You cut out a little bit.
But oh, my apologies. Here, maybe I'll turn the camera off for a moment here.
You're good for now.
Yeah, the pitching staff has really stepped up, and that's what's impressed me the most. Whether it's Mitch White with a clutch performance yesterday, Manoah pitching, in a flu game that'll go down in Blue Jays lore if they make the playoffs. The bullpen has been great. More recently, I mean, there's always going to be a hiccup here and there that we can talk about, but overall, the pitching staff is really doing their job. And you hit the nail on the head. They kind of scraped by the Pirates, and without Bichette, I agree with you. I think they're down 3 or 4 wins, so. They're playing good baseball right now overall as a team, but man, if they can get just a handful more bats going here, then I think they're going to cruise into the playoffs and potentially be a scary team to play once they get there if this pitching continues the way it has.
To your point, Chris, if they drop a couple of those games, we're currently 5 games in the wild card again ahead of Baltimore. That could be 2-3 games easy if you don't win those games against the Pirates and the Rangers and company. So
absolutely.
Especially with the fact that I don't want to ever count the Baltimore Orioles out, as I've already done that way too many times this season. They're basically they're in that ballpark right now where we were, I think, last year. Their destiny actually is still in their hands. They just have to win some damn ball games. Over the last 10 games, though, that hasn't been so much in their favor, losing 6 of their last 10. But Ian, what are you thinking for the fact that they took it to in the first 3 games of these Rays series?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. Like, the Rays always play the Blue Jays really tough. And it's, when the Yankees come to town, they always have the household names. And obviously Aaron Judge is, MVP candidate this year. But you look at the Rays, like, can anyone name like 5 or 6 Tampa Bay Rays off the top of their head? Most years I can't.
This year, definitely, because they've had, I think they said 37 starting pitchers this year.
Yeah. Well, and a bunch of them are former Blue Jays too, right? So, you just kind of look up and down, and they, Tampa Bay always seems to cobble it together, but yet the Blue Jays have squeaked out, a couple of close wins. And even that first game of the doubleheader, I mean, as soon as the bats came alive late, they could have won that game as well too. So to me, the one to watch for next week is the 4-game series in the Trop. I think we all know Tampa Bay is a house of horrors, and weird stuff always happens there. And the Blue Jays always find themselves in Tampa Bay late in the season with postseason implications in place. But as Chris said, I would say that the starting pitching has held up their end of the bargain. I would say throughout the second half, right? Like for the most part, save for like Mitch White and Yusei Kikuchi, this starting rotation has been solid. So if guys like Manoah, Gausman, Barrios are giving 5-6 innings and less than 3 runs, I think it really gives this team a half decent shot. But I'm actually quite surprised they're playing up to the Rays this year because, like I said, you look on paper and they don't have any marquee names, but they're still a very good team. But the Blue Jays, you would say on paper, they might be a better team actually. So these are very crucial games. If they win this series at home, that would be huge. And even just splitting the one next week, I would say would be a win.
Yeah, that is one that I'm praying just for a split. I'm good
Yeah.
with it if they can. Yep. So, just to be that other guy, they have gotten to Drew Rasmussen pretty good this evening so far. Blue Jays are currently winning 4-0, which is apparently now going to be the top of the fifth in a moment. But I want to talk that tonight, Vlad Guerrero, now I think it was like the 7th youngest player to get to 100 home runs as of tonight. Something like that. Chris, he's been in a slump. What do you think do you think this is the start of what could be for Vlad Guerrero for down the stretch? And if you have him and Bo pounding the opposing pitching down the stretch, this team's going to have some special things going on. What say you?
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, he's too good of a hitter not to. Just like Bichette, he's too good of a baseball player not to perform at some point, right? And so I've kind of been saying that since the second half started, that as long as the Blue Jays make the playoffs, they have enough talent that if they're kind of a streaky young team, and that comes with youth and that comes with inexperience and that sort of thing. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Vladdy got hot and went nuts for the last little bit of the season here. In the same breath, I mean, I think he's got some work to do in the off season. I mean, not that I'm a hitting expert or anything, but he's kind of gotten back to hitting the ball into the ground a lot more than he did before. And as much as he's capable of making adjustments on the fly, and he certainly will, it might be something that if we see 2021 Vladdy again, it might not be until next year. That doesn't mean that he can't be a star player and then he can't rip doubles at 110 mile an hour, that sort of thing. But I'm not going to live and die with this Blue Jay season, whether Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is hitting home runs or not. I'm hoping that there's 5 or 6 guys in the lineup that are hitting and contributing. That's to me more the key to winning. I
agree with you on that statement. Ian, do you think this is the? Sorry, see, I did what I was talking about earlier. Ian, do you think this is the rebirth of Vladdy this season coming out? I know he hasn't been doing bad by any means, but he's been a good run producer. We know he can be a great run producer.
Yeah, and I mean, I looked even in August, the month of August, he still had an OPS of 847. And last year is this is where the part of the season, I think August was his worst quote unquote season or month of the season. He had a 786 OPS, and then he came alive in the last month of last year, leading up to that second place in the MVP. So yeah, it's, as Chris mentioned, he's really been pounding the ball in the dirt. I think he's got like a 50% ground ball rate since the All-Star break. I don't know if it probably has a lot to do with pitchers throwing pitches at the bottom of the zone, because obviously if you get anything elevated, as Drew Rasmussen experienced tonight, Vladdy is going to send it out of the park. Maybe it's a part where, this is the part of the season where people are getting run down, right? Like, playing a full season takes its toll. I mean, Vladdy's done defensively. I would say he's played Gold Glove caliber first base, which if you told me that 2 years ago, I would have said no chance. This dude's never winning a Gold Glove.
Especially at third base.
Yeah, and I would say, I might argue actually this year he's kind of been a more better all-around player. Like last year, offensively, he was bonkers, but still was fresh at first base, and the base running wasn't as great as it was this year. But like all around, I would say he's a more experienced player, and yeah, he probably does have some work to do in the off season. The approach has kind of changed, I've noticed a little bit as well. I think he's only got 6 walks in his last little month or so, which is very anti-Vladdy. But again, that could be just the way that pitchers are attacking him. So I think he probably does start to kind of come around as he starts to see more pitches in the zone. And we'll see what happens. It's never as bad as it seems in the moment. It always just feels like, oh, this is going to be another ground ball double play, because he has the second most ground ball double plays in baseball, but still, like, he's going to eclipse 30 home runs. So I'd say overall, the overall body of work has been impressive, but month by month he's had cold streaks and hot streaks, right now he's in a cold streak. So we'll see what September holds.
He's got a few RBIs tonight, so we're hoping that means that something might be brewing. We got a question on YouTube here for both of you guys, and very much involved in what's going on in the actual ball game right now. Where in the world would this team be without Ross Stripling?
To be screwed.
I'm thinking pretty damn bad.
Yeah, and not only has he pitched incredibly well, but he's covered up what's turned into, the biggest hole in the roster, and that's starting pitching depth. We entered the year, the Blue Jays entered the year, and I thought that this might actually be a strength for them this season, which was naive of me. I was thinking that Ryu and Kikuchi kind of filling out the back end of the bullpen. Hopefully you get some depth from guys like Stripling, from Nate Pearson, from Thomas Hatch, from Anthony Kay. And
insert name here, right?
None of these names I've mentioned have really factored into the equation at all. And it's scary to it's been scary at different points to be like, man, what happens if they actually have another injury? I was shocked they traded Max Castillo when they did, just because of that reason. So if not for Stripling, this team would not be in a playoff position. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah, to that point, you got me an interview with Max Castillo at one point, so I got a crush on him. So, but to that point, I was surprised by that too. Because at the time, you were looking for pitching depth, and if they flip that trade with Castillo and don't get Mitch White on the flip of that, this team could look very different. I know Mitch White.
Then they're like the Yankees trading Montgomery.
Oh God. That has made me so happy, though. It's not even funny. Watching him move to the National League and be a Cy Young candidate, basically, for the St. Louis Cardinals. That's just fun to watch right there, especially when the Yankees have been in a downward spiral since. So, Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just looking at his numbers right now. Like, Stripling's got 8 quality starts for the Jays this year. And what was he like? He was the 6th man on the depth chart in rotation, right? So I think even at one point earlier in the season, wasn't he closing ball games, or he did close a game in Los Angeles?
It was at least one, right?
Yeah. So it's almost like Marco Estrada-esque, where I think back to 2015, I think that was a similar thing too. Like, the Jays acquired him as starting depth or a bullpen arm, and because of injuries, Estrada was thrust into the rotation, and he just kind of took the ball and ran with it. So, obviously, it comes with a caveat with Stripling. You hardly see him, third time through the order. He's probably not going to pitch more than 6 innings in a game, but he still gives his team a chance to compete every 5th day, which is I don't know. He might be the 3rd best starter on this team right now. If the playoffs start tomorrow, does Ross Stripling start a game? You could make a pretty big argument for him over Barrios, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where your one arguing point would be, because talking about tale of 2 seasons, Barrios has been night or day, period, the whole season, and you don't know when the night part is going to come. It's in a complete wild card where you're going to get the opening day start thrown into a slew of 3 good starts in a row, So
yeah, I would say I don't think I've ever been more wrong about a player going into a season than Jose Barrios. I penciled him in as a Cy Young candidate, because we saw the adjustments he made when he came over to the Blue Jays last year after the once they traded him, and I thought, well, he's going to take this and run with it in the AL East in 2022, and couldn't have been more wrong. But he stopped doing this Jekyll and Hyde thing as of late, which has been good to see. He's kind of settled things down, and he's made yet another adjustment. But the thought of Barrios starting a playoff game it still kind of scares me a little bit. So I would almost lean more towards Stripling, to be honest with you.
And the fact that he might have earned it would be the catch, I would think, towards Strip being in versus Barrios. But there's that giant pile of money. You paid him to be this guy. Do you trust him to be that guy is the next question. Chris, do you think Barrios is taking a turn for the positive here? Are you trusting him for a playoff start, or are you possibly looking in Ross Stripling's way?
I like what I've seen from Barrios lately. I agree with Ian. He's kind of he's shed that Jekyll and Hyde thing a bit. He's looked a lot more confident. I like what I'm seeing from him lately. Having said that, to me, he's the clear fourth starter in the playoff rotation. I mean, Stripling's kept his ERA under 3, I think now, isn't it? Like it's
after tonight, it's trending in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, like you could, having said that, in a 3-game series, I mean, you could start with Brios, and if he looks rough, Stripling's comfortable, come in and bail him out. So maybe that's the play. But I mean, if you were going strictly off performance, I would have no problem whatsoever if Schneider handed the ball to Stripling.
Yeah. So on that note, we obviously right now you have 4 good starters. We have to manage a 5th starter or some variation of it. We saw how bad the bullpen day worked the other day. Mitch White, to your point, Chris, has been very up, down, wherever, and anything in between. How do you see that the rest of these innings outside of Manoah, Stripling, Gosman, and Barrios shaping out for the last few weeks here? Or is Mitch White your answer?
Well, you know what? I think White certainly earned himself another opportunity. The next time that comes through, whether the Blue Jays decide to start him or whether they want to go with an opener and bring him in as the bulk guy, I think he certainly earned himself another opportunity. But I wrote an article a few days back about this, and I actually don't mind the way the Blue Jays bullpen is set up right now. I feel like the depth which is hard for me to even believe that I'm saying, but I feel like the depth is in a stronger place now than it's been all year long. And if they can continue to get quality starts from those other 4 guys, then that, for the last 20 games of the season or whatever, 19 or whatever's left, they might be able to get away with a bullpen days / Mitch White bulk days and be just fine. Certainly better than I like that option better than giving the ball to Kikuchi or something as an alternative.
Yeah, that would be a safe bet. Ian, what are you thinking on that whole thing? Do you think that Mitch White and company are kind of the answer to the going for that 5th day?
Yeah, I
or
think
you got some brain idea?
I don't know. Like, really, they don't have many other options, right? Like the depth at AAA is not there. The one guy I think who could make an impact still is Nate Pearson, but not in a starting capacity, right? Like, only as a bullpen guy, maybe as an opener. I thought they've used the bullpen days have kind of fared actually okay. They haven't been disastrous, which has been impressive, but I almost
in the ball game. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah, I kind of wonder though. I'm like, how long does this last? Like, are the bullpen days going to turn into a pumpkin?
Yeah.
But like, honestly, if you like, not saying they're punting every 5th day, but like, if you say you throw out Julian Merriweather or Trevor Richards for an inning or 2 to open, and then you bring in Mitch White or you say Kikuchi or whatever, and you're only down, 4-0, 5-0. I would probably take that, sadly, compared to other Yusei Kikuchi games earlier in the year. But like, they've got to figure out something. I think they're probably going to have at least like 3 more turns through the rotation, maybe 4. So they're going to have to manage the innings here, depending on how close things get. Maybe you see the rotation tighten up a bit, and maybe guys start pitching on short rest. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but yeah, it's like White has been. It's almost as like, I think him, Kikuchi, and Barrios all have ERAs above 5 still. Last time I checked, so. But again, there's really not many other options. So you just kind of have to pray and hope that they don't give up like 5 or 6 runs and then fill out the rest of the day with relievers.
Yeah. I think the bullpen day is going to be here to stay for the near future, boys. And I think that bullpen day spells Mitch White for X many innings, maybe Yusei Kikuchi for X many innings, Julian Merriweather, Trevor Richards, however you end up concocting that together. But you look at the schedule, there's not a lot of breathing room and off days to really set up anything to keep it on like a 4-man rotation. It'd be very hard to play with that because it's more or less they have 8-game stretches for the rest of the season. So they're going to have to mix something in. And then, of course, a lot of this is pendant on where we are in the standings. So if the Baltimore Orioles completely fall out of this whole thing, that last week where we're playing them and the Red Sox, some things could play in our favor depending on how other teams do in the wild card race. But to that point, everything is on the table right now. They damn well better be going and trying to play as best as they can to steal that division spot, because I can't say it will happen, but it's definitely not out of the reality with the way the Yankees have been playing.
And how crazy is that? Like a month ago or like 2 months ago, they were like 16 and a half games up, and everyone basically gave the Yankees the World Series trophy. And now, the Jays control their own fate, right? Like they could close the gap. I don't expect them to, but it's crazy that this is a possibility this late in the season, right?
I think that's called irony. If they steal the freaking division from the Yankees after they just kept us out of the playoffs last year, I think that's the perfect way to spell it. But the Yankees had been, I can't say anything but a dumpster fire, basically. They've been playing better of late and riding Aaron Judge's ridiculous home run record in wearing pinstripes into the sunset. And I think basically at this point, Aaron Judge is dragging the Yankees to the division. If he cools down in any fashion, they're 7-3 over the last few games, but they have not been the same team that everybody thought was going to steal the single season wins record from the Seattle Mariners before the All-Star break.
I mean, I look at like a couple of their trades kind of fizzled out, right? Like everyone was crying for the Jays to get Frankie Montas, and
I was strangely okay with that not happening.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no, we're good with that trade. Actually, we're good with not having him. So, like, it just goes to show you, like, no team is, unless you're the
Benintendi too.
Oh. Yeah, Benintendi, right? Like, unless you're the Dodgers and you've already clinched, like, anything's still possible. So there's still time, there's still runway. But yeah, it's just, how wouldn't that be crazy if like the last day of the season the division's still in play? Like that would be so awesome.
We're not far from that, and it's only getting closer. It's 6 games technically right now? Yeah, 6 games, and that's wasn't this like 15 games like a month
15,
ago
16,
or something like that?
Yeah.
Chris, I think Teoscar Hernandez actually said it in an interview the other day that when he came back from his son being born, that he's back and he's here to win the division. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should still obviously try to do that, but to me, I think the focus should be trying to get the top wild card spot at this point, secure a home series, and the Blue Jays can only do so much, as we've seen with the Mariners and the Rays lately. They can only win so many games. They're going to need some help from the Yankees and whoever they're playing in order to catch them. So to me, control the destiny that you can, beat the Rays as many times as you can before the end of the year, and hopefully the Mariners eventually lose a couple games. And I just love, my hope is that they get to host a playoff series. I just love to see, if they end up as a wild card team, I'd love to see them in the fourth seed, so they could bring a series to Toronto.
So they're, as of right now, like they're still winning 4-0 in the top of the 6th inning. How crucial do you think it is? I know we need to beat the Rays enough games going forward here to stay in the wild card race. The Blue Jays don't hold tiebreakers on the Seattle Mariners and many of the other people. How crucial do you think for their success it is that they hold that tiebreaker over the Tampa Bay Rays? Because we came down to 1 game last year. Chris, I'll let you kick that one off.
That's a good question. I mean,
I gotta, something's working right up here for me tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I don't think it matters that much, but I mean, obviously 1 game mattered a lot last year, and with the way the playoff format's set up this year, it does matter. So, I mean, I really hope that they don't play a series at the Trop. That's like the nightmare scenario for me. So control the destiny you can, make sure that right. It's not like it's an easy task, but if you can win the season series against Tampa Bay over the next week or so here, that's the most beneficial thing that they could possibly do.
Why do I feel like the Shoemaker game is still ringing too good and true in your memory bank?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Ian, what are you thinking?
Well, I just looked so right now the Jays are behind 6-7 in the season series. So if they win tonight, that comes even at 7-7. So Like, wouldn't it be just like a gut punch if they tie, or if they just like they lose by one, and then they that ends up being the factor in the top wild card of the Jays having to go into Tampa Bay. Like, it's just, that's kind of why I feel like you have to put your foot to the metal in these games here. And that's the one thing I've kind of, I don't know about you guys, but like I've noticed maybe like a more sense of urgency in these games with John Schneider. Like, the other
Yeah,
night
I agree.
he emptied
Right.
the bench basically, to
I
help
like
win
the
the
fact that
game.
he's actually managing a baseball game. He's using his
Yeah,
gut and the information he has at hand, and he's acting.
right.
I
Like,
agree with you.
he's a lot more active. We've seen Romano in like, multiple inning situations, or he comes in the eighth inning, which, didn't really happen very often with Charlie. So I like the fact that it's not just like, oh, okay, well, we'll just write this one off, we'll win it tomorrow. Like, they're not taking that mentality anymore, which is enlightening to see, because it looks on paper, it looks like a nothing game, but really they are still playing for that tiebreaker. So it's super crucial right now for sure.
Definitely. So moving forward, tomorrow night, apparently Shane McClanahan is going to come back and pitch against the Blue Jays. So tonight, like I said, they're not in the cruise control seat right now at 4-0 by any means. Let's say they win tonight. How are you feeling facing a guy that is in the Cy Young conversation for the American League tomorrow night? Is it Barrios going to be on the hill? No, I can't remember who's on.
Gosman, I
Gosman.
think.
Gosman. So it's basically Cy Young candidates against each other tomorrow. Gosman's had some ups and downs, but he's been consistently bulldogish on the mound. Ian, how are you thinking tomorrow looks with that matchup going?
Yeah, I think that's why, as soon as I saw that he was going to be activated for tomorrow, I thought tonight is kind of like a must win, because, you just assume that you're going to get like Cy Young caliber Shane McClanahan on the mound against the Blue Jays tomorrow, right? And maybe he is off because he's not his sharpest because he's coming off the injured list. But yeah, I
Or
would
he can be
say
really well rested.
that's
Whichever
true.
way.
Yeah, so like that's why I still think like tonight is so crucial for this team. Like, so last time he faced them, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. So to me, that kind of says everything, especially when, the Jays are a very swing happy team, and McClanahan obviously can get tons of strikeouts. So I think it might be a low scoring affair tomorrow. That's why I think they need to pile on the runs today.
Chris, how are you thinking Gosman v. Yeah.
Yeah,
v. Rays
no,
tomorrow night?
I don't mind it actually, and like with him coming back, I feel good about that part. He might be, like you said, he might not be quite as sharp as he normally is. I don't love that he's a lefty, because for some reason this right-handed heavy lineup can't hit southpaws all that well, which still blows my mind repeatedly. But
It's been a Blue Jays trend for years, hasn't it? That's not just this season in a nutshell.
weird.
Even when we had EE and Bautista in there, it seemed like they were the only two that could hit lefties.
I mean, but the part that I do like is that the Blue Jays, I'm oversimplifying it at this point, but it seems like they hit established, talented starters, and they can't hit guys I've never heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hopeful that that plays into things, and that McClanahan's maybe just not as sharp, and that they ride momentum. If they can pick up another win today, taking 3 out of 4 so far, hopefully they can just ride it through and take McClanahan down when he might be a step below his best.
Yeah, if they were going to pick a day to face him, I agree that tomorrow is probably a better day to be facing him than like next week when he's had that start already.
Yeah, I like this matchup.
It's going to happen probably too.
I was going to say I like this matchup better than the one that'll be coming in Tampa Bay in a week.
You, Chris, you brought up a little bit of a point I made on the show a few weeks ago, and seeing my normal gang of buddies who is not here, and I get the Writers Guild with me tonight in Blue Jays baseball. I brought up the fact that I made an observation this season that the Toronto Blue Jays, and they made a point of this, they just hit hard-throwing pitchers better. And we've seen Loris Gurriel Jr., who is hopefully going to be coming back from the IL soon. He just finds a way to hit good line drives on solid velo. you look at the flip side of the coin, which was basically what we had the other night, a guy that nobody thought would ever make it back to the majors. He's only had one other start with the Anaheim Angels, I believe, that the Rays trucked out there the other night. And he kind of made them look like they didn't know what to do with their bats. The Blue Jays have been having problems against guys that I would call the Mark Burley type hitting, period, where if they get some guy who can throw above 95, they find a way to get hits. What do you think of that idea?
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, you know, it never, I shouldn't say it doesn't intimidate me, but I almost like when I see that they're coming up to Garrett Cole, I'm like, sweet, Vladdy's going to hit well today. You know, Vladdy doesn't
find a way to turn
mind
on
100 mile. Yeah, he doesn't mind 100-mile fastball. Gurriel doesn't, you know, but Bichette likes to sit on fastballs. Chapman likes to hammer. You know, it seems to me it's the soft tossing lefties especially, but any of those guys that are like Criswell from the other night that are the sinker, slider, outside corner guys, that's what the Blue Jays really struggle with. And so, I mean, McClanahan's kind of got a full package that he can bring to the table, so he can attack him however he's going to. But yeah, when I see the Rays bring up a guy like Criswell, I'm like, of course, like they've probably just been waiting all year to do this and sitting back and laughing about it and knowing that it's going to work, and of course it did.
Yeah, to that point, Criswell was doing pretty good of painting the corners the other night. But
he pitched great. But I mean, like, I'd never heard of the guy, and then all of a sudden he shows up.
I'm the minor league guy, and I'd never heard of him.
Yeah, he's throwing sliders and sinkers to the outside corner, and he pitched very well. But
looked like he was finding a Greg Maddux like form against the Blue Jays the other night. But yeah, Ian, do you think there's something that I just exposed the Blue Jays' kryptonite is finding Mark Burley type pitchers?
Well,
trucking them out there against the Jays.
I was just running their numbers, and the Jays this season against pitchers who throw 95 plus, they hit 263. Against pitchers throwing below 95, they hit 262. So
it's really
it
just looks different.
But the interesting thing is 20% of the pitches they've seen are 95 plus, and 80% of the pitches they've seen are 95 and below. So I think the book is absolutely out on them about breaking balls and off-speed pitches, right? Like we saw in that, what was that at bat, Bo and Jordan Fairbanks, I think, where that dude's pumping like 100 and 101, and he was sitting on it no problem, but all of a sudden they throw off speed and these guys are getting fooled very easily. So we've seen these guys they have plenty of hitters in the lineup who can hit high velo. But obviously the league's going to adjust to that. So that's maybe why we see a lot of like funky deliveries, soft tossers and whatnot. Not just guys throwing gas out of the bullpen against the Blue Jays, because if you do throw gas, they're going to hit it, go yard for sure.
Yeah. If it goes in faster, it goes out faster. Physics.
Yeah, that's right.
So after that game, we got the Baltimore Orioles at home, thankfully, for this weekend. And then we get to move into the Philadelphia Phillies and back to the Trop over the next week. How do you guys foresee, because we'll be recording on Monday mostly with my normal gang back here again. Let's talk this Baltimore series over the weekend, as that's our next series. The Baltimore Orioles are in a slump right now. They are still a young, hungry team. I think I'm hoping the home field advantage proves it's true to keep us moving in the right direction here, but I'm worrying about the Baltimore Orioles. Ian, what are you thinking?
Yeah, they're not dead until they're truly dead, right? But the fact that this series is at home and the Blue Jays, the fact that they took 3 out of 4 in Camden Yards, like I thought if they escaped with the series split that other week, that would have been fantastic. But taking 3 out of 4, I don't know. Like
that was very helpful.
Have the Orioles turned into a pumpkin yet? I don't know. Like I think everyone in baseball is like, how are they doing this? And they're just running on like rookie power and, Rudin Odor and like all these guys are just, they feel like they're playing with house money. And obviously the Blue Jays should be a better team than them because on paper they are the better team. But yeah, I think maybe it's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, this is where like the veteran savvy kicks in and you see like George Springer and guys who have been there before, they know what to do in these situations. Whereas like those rookies on the Orioles are just happy to be there. So they haven't played deep in September before. I think this is maybe a part in the season where we start to see that veteran leadership and take over on the Blue Jays. So I think they probably take 2 or 3. Obviously, a series sweep would be great, but just throttling them further down the standings would just make things a little more comfortable as we get into the last couple weeks here of the season.
Yeah, like we were talking a minute ago, you get that buffer.
Mm-hmm.
It's them and the White Sox, and if they're 7 games back, that's a lot more interesting as we have more or less 3 weeks left of baseball. Chris, how are you feeling about Baltimore this weekend?
I'm not too worried about. This is naive of me to say, but the Blue Jays can take care of the Rays here. I'm more worried about the White Sox than I am the Orioles, to be perfectly honest. I feel like the Orioles have had a great season in their rebuild. If you're an Orioles fan, you should be excited because there's a lot to like there, but they're not. They shouldn't be this good. I mean, and it never should. I don't want to say it was never going to last because 20-game win streak can prove me wrong, but I'm actually more worried about the White Sox than I am the Orioles. And they're like the Blue Jays and the Yankees that I mentioned earlier. I feel like it's a situation where the Blue Jays completely control their own destiny. As long as they take care of business and don't fall apart down the stretch, then neither the Orioles or the White Sox should be able to catch them, and it should be about jockeying for position in the wild card.
To your point on the White Sox, they have been doing their job over the last 2-3 weeks. And I know they're 6-4 over their last 10, but the biggest problem with them is to what you just said. They're not in control of their destiny. They're not playing these teams that are ahead of them in the wild card race. So they have to hope that we lose, the Mariners lose, Tampa Bay loses. There's a lot of what if there, and then they just have to keep winning. That's more or less my worry about the Orioles. They're playing all these teams. They could just be a thorn in everybody's side and find a way to sneak in. That's baseball. That's why we play the game, right? So anyway, enough on that. I want to have some fun before I let you two both run off. And until, Chris, I know you're here all the time, but I don't always get to get Mr. Hunter on this show all the time. So I want to make sure we have some fun here before we wander off. Not that we haven't horrible times, but Chris, you wrote an article recently. What's your issue with the bunt and why we're not doing enough of it? Or
I just think the team sucks at bunting, and they don't do it enough in order to get better at it. So it's either utilize the skill or don't. And right now I'm at a point where it's like, don't. Like, none of you can bunt, so just stop trying. We've had 8 sacrifice bunts all season long. Espinal can't bunt. Zimmer can't bunt. Like all these guys that you expect them to be able to bunt, you can't practice that either. That's the thing, is it's not something you can just do before the game and replicate live game bunting. It's completely different. And so if you want to be a team that's good at bunting, you got to do it earlier in the year. And right now they're not good at bunting. There's my answer. Quite
short and sweet of it. Yeah. Ian, what do you think? Kill the bunt?
Yeah, I was I figured the Jays would probably be at the low end of the spectrum when it came to bunting. The Braves have not had a sacrifice bunt at all this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The Dodgers have had one.
That shocks me.
But yes, as Chris said, the Jays are horrible at it, and there's I think of a few key scenarios when Santiago Espinal just could not get the bunt down, and I was kind of having a bit of a weird flashback to that game when Merrifield came up, and I thought, oh, they're going to ask him to bunt now, aren't they? And thank God he didn't, because he comes up with that clutch double. So yeah, it's just like, it's on the surface, it seems like a baseball fundamental. Like, these are the things they obviously practice, but I think never bunt. I hate bunts as well. Like, it just, it's never good. You're giving up and out. I say let the guy swing the bat, unless it's like you haven't scored a run in 5 games. Then okay, try it. I guess.
Is so nuts, you just push it that direction.
Yeah, but it's just it's maddening, especially when this team can't seem to score runs. It's like, really, this is the time you're going to try it? So, yeah, if we don't see it again, I would be pretty happy, actually.
to your point, that Whit Merrifield one was like, oh, he's going to come up here. He's got bunt. He's fast. This is what we're gonna do. And then I was so happy to watch him swing the bat. And then I wasn't expecting that, but I was very happy to get the double and the RBIs out of that. That was very fun to watch. And that actually was the catalyst for the whole game the other night.
Well, it just goes to show you, right? Like you put the ball in play, and although it wasn't like that, almost looked like a ground ball double play. At least the fact you put the ball in play, you have to make the fielder make a play. Whereas if you're bunting, the likelihood is you're going into an out, if not maybe two. So yeah, it's never good. The Jays have never really been that great at it. So stop doing it, I would say.
To that point, I love what you said about that piece is get the ball in play. And this is why as much as I'm a giant Toronto Blue Jays fan, one of my favorite players to always watch when I was growing up was Tony Gwynn. That man didn't strike out. He took his walks. He found a way to get that ball in play. And there's a reason he's probably arguably one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball history. And without this shift shit next year, maybe we can get back to some normal stuff.
Yeah, maybe they do have maybe they have a bunting clinic in the off season or something.
So now, Mr. Hunter, I want to talk about one of the articles you wrote recently, which was this one about the wonderful random assortment of Blue Jay related items that you found on the internet.
Yeah,
I guess through that a little bit.
Yeah, so if you go to the Blue Jays auction site, often they'll have jerseys, balls, baseballs, used bats for sale. But if you go to the buy it now section, you can kind of buy these weird things. And I remember seeing this earlier in the year, and I think I tweeted it out and I didn't really think anything of it, but you can actually buy a piece of the old Rogers Center video board for the low price of $200. And I don't know, it's like literally a square piece of electronic. I don't know what you would do with it. It's just the fact that you say, oh, I have a piece of the old video board. So that's one thing you can buy. You can also buy a bottle of the game used infield dirt from the first game back in Toronto last year. I actually own, sadly, the first bottle of infield dirt they had from the first all dirt infield game. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Don't ask me why I bought it. It was an impulse purchase. So I bought that.
It looks good on your shelf. Don't worry about it.
Basically, yeah, that's essentially it. And you can also get a ball from Justin Verlander's no-hitter from 2019. Not a ball that was put in play or not a ball that was used. It was a game-ready baseball. And it's $125. So that was probably one that was in like the umpire's bag, but never got into game. So it just, I always love going down the rabbit hole of like weird and like stupid Blue Jays merchandise. Like, really, why are they selling these things? But obviously some people are buying them. Otherwise they wouldn't have them on the website. So it's, you can always go down. It's fun to go down that rabbit hole for sure.
Chris, let's say you have $1 million and you were forced to buy one of those 3 items. Which one tickles your fancy?
Oh, probably the scoreboard part. I mean, I've got a piece of turf from the 92 season in my collection. So that just goes to show that, I don't know, I'll buy stupid random stuff too.
So you've been reading all of Ian's articles and then just going, buy.
Well, there is one. I don't know if you guys have seen the Jays, their 50-50 auction, and they're going to be doing this a lot lately, but they're raffling off one of the prizes is 2 original Skydome seats. So I'm like, I really want to get my hands on those. I don't know why. It's like, it's not practical. They would just sit in my garage, but it's just like the fact that you can brag and say that you have Skydome seats. So watch it.
I would absolutely put in my basement and sit in them, even if they would be uncomfortable. I would still be like, no, I'm white.
I'd find a way to pour concrete just to have those out on my patio and have them, because they're mounted on the step, right? So they're like, it's not like they have a fold out or anything. I got to make that work.
Funny thing is, we go to the ballpark and complain how uncomfortable those seats are, and yet I'm like, I gotta get me some of those in my own house. So,
and to that point, how many do you think are going to be on sale now that they're revamping half, the whole outfield?
Yep.
on all the levels, all the 500 levels, still those seats with the logo and everything on them.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
that'll
some
be
of them.
coming because they're
Some
ripping
of
out
them, anyway.
those, and then the following year they're going to be apparently taking out all the 100 level seats as well and replacing those. So very suddenly you'll see them come up on auction sites. So if you're a weirdo like me, I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunities to buy these things.
Yeah. All I know is I guess that where my cheat seats are on the third baseline or on the first baseline, literally going, they made those weird cuts that go toward the foul pole. Those are where I always sit whenever I'm at a ball game because it's a front row seat, but I'm not paying for a front row seat.
That's right. Yeah.
So, so boys, that's the end of our show. Ian, I'm going to let you have your shameless self-promoting plug right now if you want to tell where all the Blue Jays fans can find you if they don't know already. This is your moment to shine.
Sure. You can find me tweeting random things, videos of Alejandro Kirk running around the bases on Twitter. At Blue Jay Hunter, I'm also writing about the Blue Jays down the stretch here for Daily Hive. Just my most recent piece was about Jordan Romano and how he's basically been like one of the best clutch relievers in baseball this year. You kind of look at the metrics like win probability added and the fact that I think he's appeared in like 18 one-run save situations. And
how many of those were the first month of the season?
I know, right? Like he's had a really underrated year as a reliever. So that's the latest piece I've got up there. And yeah, you can follow my work on there if you like.
Chris, your turn. Plug away, friend.
Yeah. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Baseball for Brains is the handle. It's baseball number 4 brains. And then you can always find my work at Jay's Journal and all the wonderful writers that we have on the team that are there putting out content on the daily. So check us out.
Good deal. So before we do our typical sign off here of the 2 claps and a Ric Flair in a la Caleb Joseph, make sure you're Blue Jays fans. You tune in each week. We're going to be live on Monday. I believe Chris's counterpart, Tyson, is going to join us from Jay's Journal. Brendan Panikar will be back on Monday to join me as well. And we will be just continuing to run through the playoff race with you. We're going to try having a few more shows each week, mostly aiming for the off days so you can come and join and discuss with us. Thank you for those that did join in on the YouTube and the Twitter feed tonight and actually, dealt with me steering the conversation in certain directions with our 2 guests this evening. Until then, find us on wherever you get your podcasting pleasures from, whether it's Spotify, Apple, any of the good places. So anyways, 2 claps and a Ric Flair on a 1, 2, 3, fellas.
Sure.
I just saw Ric Flair smoking a blunt with Mike Tyson on Twitter. So this is appropriate.
Yeah, that's legal here in New York now too. I can help out with that. It's not just you guys north of the border anymore. So anyway, 1, 2, 3. Woo! Let's go Blue Jays.